Thank you very much. And I know it's the time of the day where we have to be a bit speedy with one another, so I'll go and present 3 themes to you in 15 minutes, so 5 minutes each. I said I cannot talk about leadership in the era of AI without speaking about what leadership itself will entail. That's number 1. Number 2, I'd love to give you some insights into the latest leadership development programs that are currently happening, leading companies around the world. And then 3, for those of you closer to the people function, I'd love to show you what Gen AI is also doing to the people function itself and what opportunity it has. So that's 15 minutes. If you give me 1 minute at the end, I do have a couple of life hacks for you with which you write next week can also change the way that you yourself think and act about leadership development in the era of Gen AI. So what's this leadership model? Of course, future leaders, all of us, have to be tech savvy, clear. Even more importantly, all of us will have to really train our critical thinking muscle, because we can only have value-based judgment if we are able to filter all the information that comes to us with a truly critical mind. And then thirdly, and that's what I'd like to focus around here, is the proposal of a new approach to leadership that puts the human in the center. It wouldn't be McKinsey & Company if there were no numbers behind it, which I'm going to show you right now. Organizations with human-centered leadership are overall more resilient. They have, not surprisingly, a higher talent retention, and we all know we have to be careful with causality and correlation. I see some scientists in the group as well. Their company's performance also correlates with the culture of human-centeredness that they are able to instill. So what does this very concretely mean? Well, in May we published a paper on how women CEOs around the world lead. And they also said, I am leading, that's the point number 1 on this very slide, I'm leading in a more human-centered way than my male colleagues do. They say something fascinating also, which is point number 2, and I'm sure many of you have this in their daily business lives as well. The balancing of attributes that seem to be contradicting one another. So boldness with vulnerability, confidence with the ability to be humble. So those women CEOs around the world said exactly being able to balance is one of the core skills that we truly need. And then, of course, being able to practice system-wide thinking remains important to them. Had we more time, I would go around this very circle with you. But if you'd like to take a picture of it and just ask yourself, if those are the 12 attributes, 6 more personal, 6 more around leading organizations, of this future-centered leader that we need in the era of AI, which would be the 2 or 3 that you would choose? And where would you see this balance that I described for the female CEOs that you'd like to strike? That was a very fast version of human centricity in leadership in the context of being tech-savvy, in the context of deploying values-based judgment with critical thinking. Now, what are companies doing to enable this and to, frankly, technically upskill their organizations? I brought a couple of examples, 1 to 5 here for you, and we go through one by one. I'll also make the material available because each of them has a case study attached to it. Number 1. I like this telco example a lot because what it does, it did a company-wide enabling on Gen AI, and they had 2 secret sources. Number 1, they truly figured out who their super users are. For all of you working in transformations and change, we had this theme of change agents. Well, in the era of AI, it's the super users. So they identified the super users and asked them, what is it that you currently deploy? What is it that convinced you to be a user as much as you are right now? That's not the only special thing they did. The other thing they did very well is they worked with their most senior leaders, and they worked with them on a one-on-one basis. You would be surprised how little knowledge there still is, or little knowledge and appetite to literally get your hands dirty and start using technology, and in particular, the new opportunities that Gen AI offers. So the second secret sauce of this very training, in addition to identifying the super users, was to work one-on-one with the most senior executives and ensuring they had the aha moments on why Gen AI can work for them. The second one is from a global consumer goods company. And if you're thinking of how to get, in particular, your executives around you interested in the theme of Gen AI, assuming that they aren't yet, follow this example. You know what they did? They did global world tours of watching peers who weren't as far as they were, but also watching tech companies in terms of what's currently already possible when it comes to Gen AI. So real-life experience, you can say a lot, you can hear a lot of speeches around it. When you see in actions that coaches turn into Gen AI that reply to your direct feedback and help you improve, it's a very different story. So that's number 2. Number 3 is a professional service firm. They really picked up on the word of human-centric in the era of AI. So what they've done is they said, in order for us to ensure that our organizations truly adopt Gen AI, all of our leaders need to become coaches. So what they did is they literally took their most senior leaders one by one and gave them a training that normally only professional coaches would get. Then I come to one more, and then my favorite one, number 5. Number 4 is a tech company, and I don't know if you heard the FOBO word. I didn't know it till I was working with this very company. The FOBO word is the fear of becoming obsolete. And as a neuroscientist, if you ask me what's at the very heart of many, many senior executives and even non-executives not adopting AI yet, it lies in the fact of who am I as a person, what is happening to my very role if what they say about the potential of AI truly becomes reality. I'm somewhat convinced of the training. I think one could be even doing more. So what they literally did is help people discuss, bring it to the table, and then openly do reflection exercises and deeper mindset work with them. If you feel that this is something happening in all your organizations, what you can learn from this example is to make it something one speaks about, and not only hearing the passive aggressiveness of, it won't work, I've seen it, it hallucinates, I've seen it, it gave me wrong results, etc., which might all be true, and I encourage critical thinking, as you heard me. But this fear of being no longer relevant and becoming obsolete is real. Now, my favorite example, number 5 for you, imagine this very bank where they've designed the perfect, literally the perfect training for leaders on Gen AI. They had never seen such a high adoption rate of training, and they've never seen such a high satisfaction rate with the training itself. There's one little but to it. Luckily, they checked to what extent after the training executives actually used Gen AI. And while 95+% loved the training, under 9% used afterwards the new tool that they were actually trained upon. It might make us smile, it's very sad, so the big question becomes, whenever you go also yourself through such a training, whenever you lead your organization through this training, how do you bring the skills into the teams? What they've done is they then took a team-by-team approach. They said every team should become a high-performing team empowered by already existing Gen AI, and they worked on team-by-team basis and literally were able to free up significant amount of time for more strategic work from their people. Yeah? So even if you mastered all the quick tips and tricks that I've given on Gen AI leadership development program, do ask the question of, and who is using it to what extent afterwards? I'll ensure the other panelists also have time. So as you see, there's a case study behind behind each one of them. Now you see the telco. I don't seem to be able to click, there we go, further. There we go, there we go, there we go, there we go. And some success factors just as reminders. So for these trainings, and in order to avoid the pitfall that this financial services institution, that bank had at the very end, do make this Gen AI theme real for your leaders. Everyone taking a training needs to be able to answer the question, why are you taking this very training and how will concretely it help you tomorrow? And sometimes some sort of a gamified approach helps a lot. Now, I promised a third thing. I said I'm only going to show you very briefly how this whole function, the function of people, of culture, of the HR department in your organization, will have to shift in the context of AI to deliver this. There we go. Now, this is an overview of overall automation and the possibility within HR. I'm not going to walk you through all the different buckets. The so what of this chart, it's simply huge. When you look at leadership development on its own, so it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those little bubbles on this very chart, think of ways that now 360-degree feedback can be collected easily, can be interpreted for you, can be even discussed with you live by the help of Gen AI. So this very people function, I'm just going to describe it briefly, will need to change in the way it's operating and in the way it considers its mandates. You need some very frictionless, some very personalized approach towards developing your very leaders. And I can't resist to show you one, we won't go through the details, to show you two charts actually. One is what I'm saying here in terms of the future of the people function. Again, it wouldn't be McKinsey if there weren't some numbers in here that confirmed what I've been describing. This has huge efficiency potential, that's clear and we all know it. But it also has effectiveness and experience potential for all organizations developing it. And then my favorite one, you don't have to look into detail, what it would look like is a bit like this, but think of your HR function today and think of an HR function in the future where you have data scientists, where you have technologists, where you have HR strategists working seamlessly together and much more strongly than today, asking the business to step in to develop the leaders that sit in this very business. Now, I promised a +1 for my last minute, and you can decide yourself whether you're rather the strategist already experienced or the visionary when it comes to this very transformation. But maybe a minute of reflection on yourself at this very end. When you look at what your organization and what yourself could be doing, so the life hacks for the next week, ask yourself on the following: where do you stand on those 10 points from an organizational perspective? The point number 1 is chosen as the point number 1 because it speaks about purpose, and it's a real purpose that I'm referring to here. So if your organization knows why it exists, then it will be able to deal with any complexity around the world. Ask yourself also, when I do not only look at this as an organization, but if I look at this as a very leader, again, I'd love to point your attention to this very first statement here. Be before do. Decide who it is that you want to be as a leader in this very world, how you are personally going to bring together tech savviness, critical thinking, and human-centered leadership. I want to thank you very much for your attention, and also I promised I would not do it, I can't resist. In this very corner there's a little boy sitting who's my son, and he's been told at school that it's not cool to play with girls. So I brought him today to show him that it's very cool to collaborate with girls and look at the women that they can become. Thank you very much.
That's great.